National Fire Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the National Fire Radio podcast, a podcast that is designed to talk about the job. I'm the luckiest guy alive. I get to interview the coolest people out there in the American Fire Service and talk about the job. Everything from guys riding backwards, officers, chiefs, up through companies, people, manufacturers, products, organizations, you name it. We're trying to capture the stories to promote the job and make the job better. So if you're returning and you're a regular listener, thank you. If you're new to the podcast, check it out and let us know what you think. Podcast at nationalfireradio.com is where you can find us. Send us an email. Let us know what you think about the show, people that you think might be a good guest, or anything else that you want to talk about. Send it over to podcast at nationalfireradio.com. We'd love to hear from you. And what we get to do is bring forth the word about the job. But in order to do that, we need the help of some sponsors. So do me a favor, hang tight, and listen to the words from a few of our sponsors. This episode's brought to you by Box Alarm Grills. When your apparatus arrives on scene, are you making the best showing? Looking to set your rig apart from everyone else? Want your engine, truck, or rescue to be easily identifiable? There is a solution. With large aluminum grill numbers and full-width rear mud flaps from Box Alarm Grills. Formed by Danny and a team of fellow firefighters, Box Alarm Grills gets it. They know what it means to show pride in your ride, delivering the quality construction and design that fire departments demand. That's why their grill numbers and mud flaps grab attention, enhance visibility, and make your fleet recognizable on scene while responding or just driving around town. Built in the USA by a family-owned business, Box Alarm Grills is quickly becoming the choice of fire companies, apparatus planners, and fire truck manufacturers with out-of-the-box or custom solutions. Check out functional, durable grill numbers and mud flaps from Box Alarm Grills today at boxalarmgrills.com and on Facebook and Instagram. And like Danny and his crew like to say, add pride to your ride. Taylor's Tins. Taylor and his team have been manufacturing aluminum helmet fronts since 2017 with over 200,000 shields in the market. Taylor's Tins is a leader in the American Fire Service helmet front space. Not only do they manufacture helmet fronts, but they do so much more. Locker tags, key chains, CO monitor charts, medical kit charts, pump charts, banquet awards, you name it, they do it. Go over to taylorstins.com and check out what they can offer you today. They've become a longtime sponsor and good friend of the National Fire Radio podcast, and because of that, they offer a promo code at checkout. So when you go to taylorstins.com, enter NFR Sent Me. That is NFR Sent Me, and you'll get 15% off your checked out order. It works on all stock items from taylorstins.com, including quick tins, license plates, locker tags, and much, much more. Exclusions do apply. This is a company that prides themselves on quality and customer service. From the inception, from your design to out the door, it's within 48 hours. Nobody else is doing that. They can't do that. 48 hours to get your shield out the door to you, to put it on your helmet, and get to the next job. Anyway, check out taylorstins.com. Again, that's taylorstins.com. Check out their latest offerings and use promo code NFR Sent Me. That's NFR Sent Me for 15% off on your checkout. And in the words of Taylor and his crew, stop burning up leather. Hey everyone, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the podcast. Today is going to be a real special one. A gentleman that I got to meet a couple years ago now in Canyon Lake, Texas. Let me give a little backstory about this gentleman. This guy worked in one of the coolest places I've been to in the state of Texas. Not only that, he's got 30 plus years in the fire service. He's currently is serving as a regional section chief of the Texas Division of Emergency Management. Before that, he was the fire chief of department in Canyon Lake, Texas from September of 2017 to 2021. And prior to that, 27 years experience, retired as a battalion chief with the new Braunfels, Texas Fire Department. Chief Darren Brinkkoeter, how are you, brother?
Outstanding. Thank you, Jeremy.
It is Brinkkoeter, right? I want to make sure I'm getting that right. I forgot to ask you before we started, and I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
Brinkkoeter.
Brinkkoeter. Oh, man, Chief, I'm so sorry. I should,
No problem.
I always ask for clarity when we start, and for some reason I didn't, and I should have, so I apologize, brother. But anyway,
Okay.
welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you, man. I
It
appreciate it.
it is
Very big honor for me. Been looking forward to this.
This is so much fun to have you on. So you and I met kind of on just a chance encounter, if you will. We were myself and a couple of the other guys and a couple friends. We were down there for a conference with one of the Fools groups, and then we broke away the following day, and we ended up coming up to look at a guy that had some training equipment in your area, and which led us to your firehouse, and we were able to meet you. And you were super gracious enough to show us around. And on top of that, you guys had recently purchased the TDA, right? A tractor drawn aerial that was in your department, which was super unique for you guys at the time, right? Now, this is in Canyon Lake. So this is up in the mountains, right? It's this big, beautiful lake that is has a full-time population, but it's a big summer or a big, summer population as well there. It's a resort town too?
Yes, sir. That is correct. It's called, we don't really have mountains except for way in west. So this is part of the Texas Hill Country.
The Hill Country. All right. I got it. Well, listen, I'm a New Jersey guy, so like anything that doesn't have asphalt, I'm trying to figure out what it is, you know? So, but anyway, so in the Hill Country, it was absolutely stunning. The backdrop there was beautiful. And we got to, the firehouse was gorgeous. The equipment's gorgeous. And you had the fortunate ability to be the fire chief there, the chief of department for 4 years, and so maybe we'll start with Canyon Lake because to me that's where we met. That was where our chapter started. But I know you have such a long history prior to even getting to Canyon Lake, which we'll back up to and we'll get to that. But Canyon Lake, what a unique place. Give me a little background about it because I think during your tenure there, the district, like so much of Texas, was growing at a rapid pace. No.
Yes, sir. It is. It is still growing. And when I got in there, they were trying to reorganize and get things moving. And we kind of got in there, I inherited 4 stations is what they had. And we were really blessed. And with a lot of homework and with the help of the board, we were able to convince and get a contract on that we were able to save money by building 2 stations. We knew that we were eventually needing 2 additional stations. We had very long response times, and we were trying to reduce that. And with a coordinated effort, we were able to build both of them simultaneously at the same time and get both areas covered instead of waiting or putting one or the other off.
Okay.
So we were really blessed in getting that move on, but stations need people. That's the most important, and then followed by they also need apparatus. So getting the correct piece of apparatus and looking at the department as a whole of what was the most appropriate piece of apparatus were very unique. It's more of a rural suburban area.
Yeah.
So what type of apparatus best fit? And is it the traditional big O engine, or we looked at things and went with a Wildland Type 3 engine at one of the stations because it was the best fit for the area, that it was versatile, small enough to get in and out of the tight driveways. And we have a lot of trees hanging over the longer driveways. The houses are just not subdivision homes. They got property.
Yeah, large setbacks, right? Large square footage homes too. I mean, they're beautiful.
Correct.
Area. Yeah.
All on the lake, and those houses are worth a lot of money that are along the lake as well. So again, just the hills and all of that was part of looking at the apparatus as a whole. And to be honest, when we weren't looking at a tractor drawn apparatus either, I mean, when we were looking at aerial devices, that kind of came about that our regional rescue truck that we kind of depended on bringing more air, supplied air, or bringing more air bottles on a working structure fire, and lighting for night operations, and then the higher tech rescue tools, airbags, stabilizers, big sets of tools, and cribbing for stabilization. They sold that apparatus, and then that regional or countywide resource was not there. So we had to look at a way of we had limited manpower. So if it didn't go out of the house in the first run, it wasn't going to come. There was nobody back at the station to bring anything else.
Right.
We had to look at a piece of apparatus too. And that was kind of where the whole tractor drawn apparatus, a straight frame, wouldn't been able to carry all the equipment that we were looking for. So it was unique. And again, a huge educational aspect for everybody the firefighters truly never had a ladder truck in the district before. This was going to be the first aerial device, as well as then bring in the right equipment. With the high speed around that area and the highways, motor vehicle crashes were very common, and they were very complex. I mean, we were having high speed impacts, and so we had to look at, like, how can we bring all of this into one piece, and the tractor drawn, that's kind of where that came from. That tractor drawn apparatus came. There are no street lights, very few street lights in that area. So night operations was always a deal, and they don't crash on the road. They typically fall down into the embankment or further off the highway. So we needed something that had lighting, that we could light up the scene and work safely at night operations as well.
You know, it's pretty interesting, right? Because a lot of people think of the TDA for maneuverability and not as much as storage, right? But what you get with a long articulated apparatus like that is unlimited storage ability. And when you're looking to put 2 or 3 functions even into one apparatus, the TDA certainly becomes an interesting prospect, right? How did that conversation go? I'm curious, because you went from not having an aerial device in the district to, you have a fast-paced growing district. You're on the hook for one. You end up building 2 fire stations. You need people to staff it. You need apparatus to put in them. And then you look at, you know, the uniqueness of the TDA, which typically you find in your urban settings. And yet in the rural hill country of Texas, you guys elected to go with that because you did your homework. What was that initial conversation like? Do you remember how the whole TDA conversation began? Because that's really unique and interesting to me.
Absolutely. Again, we were looking at a straight frame apparatus.
Right.
And with that twist, and we didn't, again, manpower is an issue. So I knew I didn't need an air system on the truck. I needed storage. And what we designed the apparatus to do is carry 45 extra bottles. And that could get us, SCBA bottles, that could get us through a good working fire for what we needed. So that truck was designed in its entirety. I mean, the apparatus committee was really good. And I thought outside the box as well.
Yeah.
Because I brought in a captain from New Braunfels that was on a truck company. Because again, I didn't want them just to hear it from the fire chief. I wanted this truck to be the guys, but they didn't. Nothing bad. They just didn't have that expertise or that working knowledge of working off of a truck.
Yeah.
So I brought in somebody from the outside to kind of give that intel and kind of keep them on track that, hey, I need to think about this, or the truck does this, or it does something different. I needed that, and I didn't want that buy-in just from the chief's mouth, because yes, I spent a lot of time on a truck, on a Quint, and working in the city, but I didn't want it to be just a one-way street, and whatever the chief says, this is what it's going to be, and we're going to end up working, this is it. So I kind of wanted that, but also, I mean, they had the whole buy-in. I mean, we went compartment by compartment, and I mean, so doggone proud of them, because I mean, we were calling manufacturers and getting specs of each equipment or each particular piece of whatever we were putting in that compartment and what container it was held in, so we knew how it was going to be laid out. So everything had a home. When the truck came in, we bought our own equipment, and then we put it all together, and it turned out really a sharp piece of apparatus, and it's functional.
Yeah, well, the versatility of it too, right? I mean, you know, it's so nice to be able to really dive in from the inception of design through delivery, to be able to make it your own, right? When you decide that it's the right truck, it gives you the most amount of square footage. You have the staffing to be able to operate it. That's a whole nother issue too, right? Is to be sure that you can operate that truck to its, you know, maximum performance, peak performance, right? And then realizing what it could truly do for you. And you know, when we were there and we walked through and we got to look at it, you know, you had plenty of room to go. Meaning the equipment on there, you were only probably, you know, 2/3 full, not even maybe a half full. And you had so much more ability in real estate for more and additional equipment as the district grew.
Absolutely. And you know, you mentioned that the 30 years of service, I have not known yet that we're taking equipment off of a fire engine. We're putting more and more on.
That's right.
I remember the days when my dad, I would run around with him, and his time, I mean, that there were no compartments on the truck. Everything was just kept on the outside of the apparatus. And it has only been a multitude of more things happening, thermal imagers, hot sticks for electrical wire detection. I mean, just you name it, that we're putting more stuff on it. And so that's what we had to go in with the mindset that it wasn't going to be less equipment. We need to build the truck for at least 15 to 20 years ahead and know that there was additional stuff coming at some point.
Yeah. Now, when you ended up in Canyon Lake, so you got to Canyon Lake in 2017, and that's after retiring out of New Braunfels, which was not too far from there, right? So you were familiar with the area, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
Did you know the challenges that you faced with Canyon Lake, the growth, the outpaced growth, and the requirements that within your tenure you were going to be looking at quite a expansion on many fronts?
Absolutely. I didn't know maybe it was going to be as challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, I was told right up front, yeah, we're bringing you in. You'll be the fire chief, and the last thing you're going to get is a ladder truck. But the thing is that I never even dreamed that we'd be ordering a tractor drawn apparatus.
Yeah.
Just as an example, but I mean, it's all the educational aspect of informing the board or informing the citizens, or even in keeping abreast and training on the cutting edge for the fire guys, so they understand why the need is there, and or why we're doing different things, or why we are not going to do it maybe one way versus the other way, because maybe it's been tested or trial and error, and we're not going to kind of go down that rabbit trail, kind of go down the more proven route. But I mean, getting the input, I can't say enough. I mean, the guys they did homework. I mean,
Yeah.
and a lot of it they did on their own time. We traveled, and not only just for the tractor drawn apparatus, we'd looked at other apparatus when we're speccing. We were looking at stations. We traveled to other stations, what is best to work, how. I mean, we ended up with 2-story stations because of square footage. Keeping concrete costs down and going up made sense for us. Putting fire poles back in the station and the firehouse. So little things like that, bringing some of that tradition in, but also keeping the functionality. And more importantly, I mean, the apparatus bay is where everything kind of spins around.
Sure.
There's no reason you make bowling alleys out of stations and they have to travel, the fire guys have to travel so far down the hall just to get to the apparatus bay. The apparatus bay is everything's built around that.
Yeah.
And that's the hub. That's the bread and butter. That's how we need to get on that apparatus. The faster we get on it and get out the door, the better we're going to do once we get to the customer's home and take care of business.
So you and we're going to go down the road in just a little bit talking about tradition and culture, because I know that's very important to you. You have a longstanding history in the fire service. Your father, long before you, and growing up, you knew you always wanted to be a fireman. We're going to get to that in just a few minutes. But with Canyon Lake and the expansion, we've talked about the physical aspect of it, right? The expansion, 2 floors, price of concrete, apparatus bays, living quarters, all that, right? That's the physical. What about the culture side, Chief? When you have a department, and I know this is happening in Texas because I hear about it a lot, where these ESDs are growing at such a rapid pace and they're expanding so fast that firehouses are just opening up. They're popping an engine in there and they're putting 4 guys in there and they go, here's your firehouse, here's your new territory, and good luck. And how do we, like, for you, the guy that believes in the importance of tradition and culture in Canyon Lake, when you got there, I'm sure there was tradition and culture already established, and I'm sure that you helped bring your outside influence and love for that part of the job into it as well to really fuel that. But when you're opening and expanding so fast, hiring new people, new apparatus purchases, new firehouses being built, how do you maintain that level of tradition, the importance of the traditional influence, and then also allowing for new types of cultures to be born out of it?
I would say a lot had to do with leading by example.
Yeah.
Walking the walk, not just talking about it. There's no question when those guys saw me on a fire scene, I'm in gear. I'm bunkered out. I'm not going in and fighting fire, but I'm bunkered out, so I understand what they're feeling. Texas temperatures are hot and humid, and so it more importantly kind of showed me in my own head how hot somewhat to a certain degree, just reminded me of self-consciousness, that I need to take care of them just as much. I mean, looking out, where's the water, where's the Gatorade?
Sure.
They need breaks and rest and stuff like that. So that's just kind of walking the walk a little bit. But absolutely, not that their culture it was all good. We expanded upon that, and embraced it. I didn't change the colors of the trucks coming in as the new chief. I didn't change the outside of the apparatus. I mean, we still followed their traditions that they had kind of set up, taking it to the next step, and putting a captain on the truck and a lieutenant on an engine. Those were some things that kind of introduced and was kind of reinforced.
Yeah. But we could lose our way, though, can't we? With such fast expansion, we have to be careful that, as we expand, we're not cutting corners, right? I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of work.
Yes, sir. And training, and just keeping up with the training, and that things are changing. And we ran our EMS as well. And I might add, a very aggressive EMS system.
Yeah.
I mean, we're somewhat rural. Our transport times are long. I mean, close to an hour, or a little bit over an hour if we're going to the appropriate trauma facility.
Wow.
So we introduced that was a whole nother deal. I mean, bringing the equipment and listening to them, of their needs and their concerns and the lack of what they had, and where we take it to the next level, and using or just experimenting with new equipment that was out there, and would it work better than what they currently have, and giving them that opportunity that they actually had an ear to talk to and listen and kind of make those adjustments.
That's cool. I mean, that's a chief that understands his people and understands that without his people, he's got nothing, right? Like, I mean, I remember when we were there that day with you, and the way you interacted with your guys, there was a mutual level of respect for sure. And it was fun to watch you be hands-on with the TDA, pulling it out, moving it, and so on. You weren't asking the guys were all busy doing other things, and you were very much dialed in, and that you could tell that there was this real mutual respect between the guys and yourself, and vice versa when we were there. It was a lot of fun to watch. And then we even went out on the fireboat onto the lake itself. We were, afforded that opportunity. We had a blast, and you had 2 rock stars on that boat. And it was fun to talk with the one guy. He basically grew up on that lake. He knew every little thing about that lake. And, the fact that you guys, your fireboat on that lake is used not just for EMS, but it's used for firefighting as well. We flowed water with it. We talked about how you guys provide, as a supply for structural fires or brush fires, and you could load your UTV up on it. Like, it was just a very cool experience. And I have to say that, like, it was very evident that the culture was alive and well there. The guys we were talking to were into it. They were into the job. They were into what they were doing. And that comes with a solid foundation, because guys aren't comfortable like that unless they're coming from a strong foundation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You bring the fireboat up, and again, the pride and ownership a little bit on that was just allowing them to change the boat number to the station that was first in that operated the boat. And so changing it to Marine 53 just is normally Engine 53 is the one first in to man that boat. But just that small twist or twitch, again, the boat was being, all of a sudden there was a sense of ownership.
Yeah.
And pride piece of taking care of that apparatus just as much as they do their engine. Was I didn't even have to tell them. I mean, they took that on themselves. So that was one of the best feelings, is kind of looking back and seeing that it was working.
Yeah.
The culture, they were biting into it.
So from Canyon Lake, right? So before you but before you got to Canyon Lake, I mean, you spent 27 years in a new Braunfels Fire Department in Texas, and you retired as a battalion chief. That's a much larger department, correct, than Canyon Lake?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So give me
Yes,
a
sir.
little background, because, talk to me a little bit about New Braunfels. We're kind of working backwards, because I know that your father was, you mentioned your father was a fireman prior to you, and you growing up, I mean, you just always knew that you wanted to be a firefighter. Talk to me a little bit about that and the influence that your father had on you and what it was like growing up in that house.
So absolutely, and it was. I mean, he spent 50% of his time there when he first got on. So my younger days, he was on one day and off the next. So on 24, off 24, and so we were a very tight knit family. And in 1970, the fire department took on the EMS system, and so that's where the third shift came on, and so then they went 24/48. So it was a very tight network. I mean, I remember just going out on the weekends. I mean, we were just the firehouse was that was our other family, and doing Christmas, Thanksgiving. It was just a very tight knit group of people. And that you talking culture and stuff, and going into the station and being called Little Brinkkoeter or Little Brink, and then trying to fill. I mean, I knew that's what I wanted to do. Right out of high school, I had to get into another job just to survive and kind of get out on my own, but was in a fast lube oil change. But my whole time there, I knew it took me a little bit to get to proper training and where I needed to. And I volunteered for 3 years with New Braunfels prior to getting paid or going to the career side. And so it was an honor to kind of be there and then work alongside my dad. Of course, he was on another shift for most of that time, but and then promoting past him, that was a little bit. So.
Wow. So he ended up doing how many years? 40 years, did you say?
40 years. Yes, sir.
So 40 years with the New Braunfels Fire Department, and then you did 27 years there.
Yes, sir.
And so when I read through your background a little bit, I mean, we're talking emergency medical instructor, arson investigator, fire inspector, hazmat tech, fire marshal, department historian, and you helped open the fire department's museum in an old firehouse. I mean, the list of achievements is grand. In over 27 years, you had a taste of all of it, it seems like, and then promoting up through the ranks and retiring as a battalion chief. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Anderson Rescue Solutions. Anderson Rescue Solutions was founded in 2016 by former Philadelphia firefighter Tim Anderson. As an urban firefighter and rescue specialist, Tim found that the equipment available to him lacked the usability and practicality in complex, high-stress environments that rescuers often found themselves in. To combat this, he developed products based on his own experiences in the field, creating innovative, efficient gear designed to thrive in reality. The multi-loop rescue strap is a perfect example of one of these products. Made in America, this patented tool is used for rapidly harnessing firefighters or civilians in the worst conditions. Every feature is fine-tuned to meet the needs of rescuers battling low visibility, low dexterity, and high stress. The multi-loop rescue strap has been used in numerous real-world rescues for both firefighters and civilians all across the country, and it is being increasingly adopted by fire, rescue, and tactical agencies as standard issue equipment. I carry one. I have carried one for many years. It is the most versatile strap out there. Check it out, the multi-loop rescue strap by Anderson Rescue Solutions. Tim Anderson, the owner and proprietor of Anderson Rescue Solutions, has become a dear friend. In fact, he's even been on the podcast several episodes ago. Dropped incredible information. He's super passionate about the fire service, about special operations, and he has built an incredible company and an incredible product. So because of our great relationship with Tim and Anderson Rescue Solutions, if you go to andersonrescue.com, you'll get 10% off if you use the promo code NFR2023. That's NFR2023 at checkout on andersonrescue.com. You'll get 10% off your order. And do me a favor, go over to their social media and check out Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for weekly news, product info, and other content in regards to Anderson Rescue Solutions. This episode's brought to you by Flame Decon. Developed specifically for firefighter decon, Flame shampoo, body wash, and soaps reduce your risk of getting occupational cancer. Live fire testing shows that carcinogens on your skin after a fire are removed and undetectable after using Flame. Flame Decon has made a product that not only does its job and does it well, but that you'll enjoy using. They smell amazing. They make your skin and hair feel great. I will be an absolute witness to that. I have used the product. Tara and I have known each other for quite some time. She has sent us product. We have used it, and it does take that smell of soot and smoke off of you immediately following a shower. It makes a difference. You can find Flame Decon products at flamedecon.com and use promo code NFR for 15% off your first order. That's promo code NFR for 15% off your first order at flamedecon.com. And for departments that are interested in departmental orders, more than 1 or 2 pieces of product, you can reach out to Tara directly at flamedecon.com. She's happy to entertain any inquiries that you have. And this made me think departments need to protect their own, and protecting our own is also after the fire. Chiefs, purchasing managers, look into Flame Decon as a way of protecting our firefighters in and out of the firehouse. So check out Flame Decon at flamedecon.com. Use promo code NFR for 15% off your first order. I mean, so you really had your fingers on a lot of different aspects of the job, and it's probably because you were so into the job you wanted to be well-rounded. The one thing that really stands out to me, though, is the tradition side, right? Department historian, and the fact that you helped launch or open the new Braunfels Fire Department Museum. That's really interesting to me because so many people don't go, they'll go all in on all those other aspects that I read. Fire investigation, arson detection, hazmat, right? Like, these are disciplines in their job. They're probably being compensated or whatever. It's a part of the job that, like, could promote you further. But then there's that job of the department historian, and it's usually a, like, thankless job from others. It's not recognized as important as the other jobs, but I would argue differently and say it's the most important job of the whole department.
I'd agree, and I guess probably the firing inspirational piece for me was growing up. I mean, my mom was part of the ladies auxiliary, so we were making the big fires as a kid, and I was even bringing coffee, donuts, tea, taking bunker gear to the fire scene, or worse is getting the news that, like, my dad got hurt on the job night, and then kind of seeing all of that. But once I became, like, I got to be part of the station, they couldn't take those memories away from me. I remember the older guys. I mean, manpower was tight back then, and we were a combination, early years as volunteer and paid. But I can still see the engineers pulling up on a hydrant and hooking the hard suction up to the hydrant in the engine and not losing a prime. They're already pumping to the fire back behind them. Reverse lay was real big, but not losing a prime and hooking up and getting water to that engine from the hydrant and not having to move the engine to respot it. I mean, they parked perfect, absolutely perfect, and single-handedly, like, manhandled the hard suction and hook it up, and hearing the water screech. I mean, it was just all those things, the sounds, take all of that.
I love it.
So I didn't want to lose that. And the apparatus, those older apparatus were getting moved around. A lot of history here in New Braunfels with the German heritage and stuff. And the very first piece of apparatus was bought August 3rd of 1886. And I know Texas came a lot behind the East Coast. So, I mean, 1800s is kind of our timeline. So in 1886, that very first hand cart, which they still have in the fire museum, was almost going to vanish. It was just on somebody's property and watched. And I was like, man, we need to bring that back in, and we need to water the wheels and keep the wood tight and keep and do some maintenance to it and take it in parades and show it off. I mean, it's a huge piece. But even beyond that, I was just by the word of mouth and looking around and looking and searching for the history, finding the first 1912 American LaFrance fire pumper that was the first motorized apparatus for the city. And then again, explaining to the gentleman that, I mean, he was offered a lot more money than we could ever buy something like that. And and leaving his property with a handshake agreement that he donated it back to the fire museum at no cost.
Wow.
I
That's
can't
cool.
put words around all of those things. But this didn't happen. It was doing the research, just like you said, doing the research, but more importantly is the support of getting, and I don't know how I did it because I really don't, but getting the support of the co-workers and the other firefighters, because they all had a piece in it. We have wooden ladders on the apparatus in the museum, and we were pushing really hard. The city in 1995 was celebrating their 150th anniversary, the sesquicentennial for the city, and we wanted to open the fire museum that year. And they hand sanded refurbished all the ladders and put them back to pristine condition, sealed them all up, and put them back on the apparatus. And so we were able to parade and have the apparatus. So we got a building full of the original trucks, not somebody else's, are all 100% New Braunfels Fire Department apparatus that are in the fire museum. So it is, and it was going away. One of the trucks was parked in a park, so bringing it back into the fire museum it was a 1923 American LaFrance. So we have a 1931 service ladder truck with the Pompier ladders, and the ladders, all the ladders are 100%. I mean, they probably still a ladder test today. And a 1925 Rio Speedwagon.
I love it. I love it.
All of those things, the old radios. I was the guy at dispatch, and when they took a radio out of service, I need that. And they're like, well, you can't take it. Yeah, it's not going away from the city. It's going into the museum. We don't want to lose that piece of history, the tone piece that they would hit on the desk and put up to the mic to set the plectrons off.
That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, all of those little bitty things that were going to just kind of go away. I mean, I'm really kind of proud that somehow we were able to get all of that back into there, and
for sure,
and now proudly be able to display and again bring it to the new firefighters coming in, so they knew what little the guys. I mean, they didn't have a lot back in the old days, but what little they did have, they made it go a long way and made a huge difference for the city and the citizens and the visitors to the community.
The fact that you recognized all that, though, I mean, there's so much history that gets thrown out every single day across the country from firehouses where we're erasing our past because nobody wants to put the effort in to protect and preserve it. And that's where, to me, like, guys like you, we need so many more of you, because you guys, I mean, it was so influential to you growing up that it's almost like, and just correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like I'm the same way, but it's almost like our way of giving back to what it gave us when we were young, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Talk about that.
Including like the building, doing the homework to get, it's not only now recognized as a Texas historical building marker or building, getting that, but we are also on a national level that it's with the Department of Interior as a registered historical building for the United States. So, I mean, they can still kind of do what they want on the inside, but the biggest thing is they just can't bulldoze the building down.
Yeah.
The city's growing. The land is almost, I mean, it's going to be at capacity in a few years. And the next step on that is to take the old away and build new, bigger, and taller buildings. So we didn't want that to happen, especially with the old central fire station. So to preserve that and to have that piece as the original piece, and it's so, we're like really, really proud to be able to walk on that apparatus floor, and it goes back to the beginning of the department.
What does it do? Preserving our history like that, Chief. What does that do for a department? I mean, I know what it does for you and I. I mean, we cherish the memories, and we walk into a place like that, and it's just everything comes flooding back. But say to a person that didn't grow up with the influence of the New Braunfels Fire Department, what does preserving the tradition do for the department itself, but also the people that maybe don't know much about the history? What should it do, or what is the history designed to do for those that serve today?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is to learn from the mistakes that they made back then, and everything. If we don't research the history, no different than the United States military, if you don't go back and study the old conflicts, the good and the bad, what went right, what went wrong, what equipment they had, how it changed over the years, and maybe something old maybe needs to be revamped and reused type thing. But getting that perspective on kind of where they came from. I mean, it's nice to go next door to the new modern station and see all the gadgets and stuff, but to have the respect of what they did with so little, or the equipment that they did have at that time, and they were still doing the job. And so I definitely, there's a pride piece, because they are, I mean, bringing traditions back, the challenge coin, and bringing that group, the shift. I mean, I was a battalion chief, and that was a big thing for me, that we brought the whole shift together when we got somebody new, and passed the coin around to everybody, the senior personnel on the department. And there were people far senior than I, like 35 years.
Wow.
30 something years on the job. And everybody, I would always explain that when I passed the coin out to them, and it was with the handshake that they got the coin, but a little bit of all 40 people on shift got to touch that coin and take a little bit of their knowledge, and to go back and visit with them and pick their brain of what they learned, what is their thing that they could give to the new guy.
Wow,
that was a whole piece of kind of give and take.
That serves as such a great reminder, right? Even for the guy that's been there for 35 years, but to be there for a ceremony like that, you know, and to touch that coin again, it kind of just brings back all the memories, right, of what that coin means, what it symbolizes, right? I mean, it's just so powerful.
Yes, sir.
You know, preserving our history and tradition, I mean, it takes individuals like yourself that want to do that. But I have to believe in, like, New Braunfels, there's a tremendous belief in the importance of that, right? I mean, you can't do it alone. You have to have people behind you, others that are helping you, as well as a department that supports it, right? And I know
Absolutely.
You had made yeah, go ahead.
If I didn't have the fire chief we had back then supporting, or the battalion chief, or my captain to allow me, I mean, some of it, I couldn't do it all on my time off, but allowing them to support that. I mean, I still go to the fire chief today, and I had a visit with him, and he doesn't live here in New Braunfels anymore. He lives out a little further out, but I got to visit back with him, and I said, sir, with all due respect, way back in the 1994, whenever you gave me that opportunity to do what you allowed me to do. He goes, Darren, it was all you. I said, no, sir, not at all. There was no way that I could have done any of that without his support, without his check mark.
Right.
And the ceremony, when he got to speak up there, and the words he said meant so much to me, that his words were, this was the highlight of his career.
It's cool.
Holy smoke.
Yeah.
The impact finally hit me that, wow, maybe I did something good. Just maybe. But
you did. I mean, you absolutely did. And I think, you know, kudos to the chief, because, you know, he let you run with it, right? Like, a great leader is somebody that recognizes a passion within others and allows them to explore that. And what comes out of that is nothing but greatness. And, you know, to be able to preserve the history of your department, a department that you spent 27 years serving, a department that you were the Medal of Valor Award in 2011, a Distinguished Service Award in 2012, and then Fire Officer of the Year in 2013. Like, you know, this is a department that you went all in on. You were a legacy fireman. Your father was there for 40 years. Like, this is a department that you could not, you just couldn't be a slacker. You couldn't just show up and do the job and go home. You were so much bigger and better than that. And it shows. And so for your chief to recognize that and allow you to run with projects like that, that's what sets you apart, man. I mean, that's what brings me to you. That's when we met, the passion in your eyes, the love you had for the job, and truthfully, the conversation and the fellowship we had. Like, I really, listen, I talk to guys every single day across the country in different firehouses. Yesterday, I was in a different firehouse in a different state. Today, I'm talking to you and a couple other podcast people and so on. Like, I talk to people all the time from all different fire departments. And there's a few people that are standouts to me when it comes to the passion and unconditional love they have for the job. And you were certainly one of them. And so for that, I'm grateful. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because it comes through you. Like, people listening to this episode are certainly going to feel your love and passion for the fire service.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
Of course. So listen, I just threw all those accolades at you. You've had a hell of a career, a very colorful career. And you still love going to fires. I mean, from New Braunfels, you retire as Battalion Chief. You then go to Canyon Lake. And from Canyon Lake, you take on a job with the state of Texas, where you told me, hey, I still get to run on fires if I need to. You're handling and mitigating and communicating large emergency responses in the state of Texas now. Very different than being a local fire chief.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
254 counties in the state. I'm directly responsible for 43 of those.
Wow. That's cool. That's incredible. And I know that you deal with a lot of disasters, things like that, like larger scale incidents where you're directly involved with. And so that's where I wanted to bring up your past to where you are today, because, it takes compassion. It takes a leader. It takes somebody that wants to push their career and go further with it on a bigger stage. And that's what I admire about you. And, I think that's what this is all about for you too, is new challenges, new exciting things, and things that you could build off your past. And that's where I think tradition really falls in line.
Yes, sir.
That's cool. So give me a little background about your father, the influence you had there. I mean, you talked about your mom being in the Ladies Auxiliary, but like, they set such a solid foundation for you. I mean, you had said to me, I think you said, like, you knew from like like high school, right? Somebody said to you about high school, like, you are the guy that followed through with the job you wanted, right?
Yes, sir. I knew. I mean, this is what I wanted to do. I mean, my time being able to go visit my dad at the firehouse was like, I mean, it was a highlight in first grade, going and touring the fire station and putting my dad's fire coat on. He wasn't on duty that day, but the guys were like, "Oh, we know who he is, and put your dad's coat on." And I like, made my day. I was like, that was the biggest thing for me, like growing up, and then actually living it out. But I mean, making fire calls. I mean, I'll tell on myself. I mean, he had a 59 Ford, and again, we would respond after hours as well. I mean, something big happened. They had plectrons or radios.
Sure.
And so the call would come out, and as soon as I heard that go off, I knew it was like, okay, this is gonna be a good one. I'd jump in the back of the car and get in the floorboard, and it had the big hump in the middle for the drive shaft.
Yeah.
Go in that hump and put the fire coat over me and wait. And sure enough, seconds later, he jumps in. We're down the road. And I knew that if I got up too early, he'd just let me out and get back home. And so I had to wait a little bit. And then I pop out and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "Oh, dang, you scared me. Your mom was going to be mad, but get up here and help me watch. Look for the smoke and watch for traffic. And we're going to beat the engine in." And I was like, "Whoa, holy smoke. It's like right down the road." So those days were like, I mean, then I got to stand at the corner or stand on the fire engine, and while it's pumping, and feel the pressure changes and how that truck's, it's those things that was like just, I mean, made an impact for me. And later on, I mean, those things kind of came back to my head when I got to be the pump operator and putting my leg up against the hose and kind of listening to the hum of the truck. Is it working all right, or is it struggling, or am I almost cavitating, and watching my gauges and watching the oil pressure and making sure everything's functioning along with, everything else an engineer does, grabbing tools and taking it to the front door and all of those things. But I mean, yes, I was listening to the number of couplings hitting so I'm getting the friction loss correct. All of those things I kind of got instilled early on because I had great mentors that were teaching me those things coming up.
So important. Yeah.
I tried so hard to pass those little nuggets on to the new guys, because if I just kept all of those things, they're not going to get any better, and they're not going to strive to be better. So whether it be on the fire truck or even on the EMS unit, I mean, we passing those nuggets on to those guys, and allowing them to stretch their legs a little bit and experiencing things and kind of stumbling. Don't let them fail and fall flat on their face, but allowing them to stumble on their own a little bit.
I like that.
And then let's take a step back and reorganize. And this is maybe a little bit better way, or this is another way possibly that might work better. If not, you're going to need to practice a little bit more the way you're trying to get it done to make it more proficient.
That's incredible. I love that. I mean, guys have to find their own way, but man, do we have such an obligation to allow for them to find their way, meaning we guide and we mentor as they find their way through this job. And, you know, it takes somebody with a dialed in love and respect. I mean, I think you equally respect the job as much as you love the job. And respect of the job, I think, is super important too, because you're a protector of what you know and you're a protector of the nostalgia, the history, and everything that comes with it. Is that partly why they still invite you back to talk with the new guys in New Braunfels?
It is, and again, that means a lot more than they even know. They feel.
Break that down, because I think that's one, it speaks to the department and what they value, and two, what it does for you.
So the new guys today, it depends if they're a basic EMT or a paramedic. It depends. So some of the guys are here for 4 weeks before they get out on a truck. Some of them, the paramedics have to stay a little longer, like 5 to 6 weeks before they get out on the unit by themselves. And I normally get them on. They asked me to come in the morning of their badge pinning ceremony later that afternoon, and I get to walk them through the fire museum and the stations and talk about how the stations were built and how they came along. The first firefighter fatality in 1947. We've had 3 in the city, and talking about each of those incidents. Water is a big thing. Our department is very big on swift water rescue. It floods a lot. We get a 100-year flood almost every 20 years or less, sometimes within a matter of just a few years. So we used to talk about the flood of 42 and or 32 and 52 and 72, but then we were experiencing the floods, like even in my career in 98 and 2011 and 2001, different events. But just to be expecting that, and how we transition so fast. I mean, from lightning strikes during a storm that we're in full bunker gear to swift water gear that we're taking all the bunker boots off and being ready to get into some swift moving water with the 2 rivers we have in the city, and being flexible enough that articulating all of that. And then, because you never know what you're going to be on.
Yeah.
I mean, not a big department that you're just on an engine company, or you're just on the truck, or you're only on the ambulance. I mean, our first due ambulance is their orders are gear up, pack out, and they're part of the initial firefighting team. The second in medic unit will be the one staging for rehab and or medical needs, unless there's a grab in those first few minutes. But typically, the first in medic unit is part of the initial firefighting crew, and I think that's pretty awesome, because it keeps everybody. It doesn't matter. You're not just on the ambulance. I mean, you get to make a huge difference in somebody's lives.
Yeah.
On that, but then you also still get to do the job of fighting fire and active rescue calls and such like. So it was very, very versatile, and trying to keep pencil sharp on all of those.
I love it. I mean, I think that's great. But the fact that they invite you in, a retired battalion chief, and then a retired chief from a neighboring department up the road a little bit, and then somebody that works for the state of Texas now, they still invite you back to speak with those new kids during the day of their pinning ceremony, because they put value in the history of what their department has gone through. I think an introduction like that speaks volumes to those new kids coming in.
Absolutely. Hopefully they take just a little bit of that and keep it going, keep the history going. They're writing their own book and the department's history book as they move along. But if they're able, my whole thing is if they can take a little bit of that and see where it's come from and uphold that honor. I guess one of the biggest things is that once you're sworn in as a firefighter, you're never able to take the badge off. Whether you're in uniform or not, you're always a firefighter. No different than a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah.
They're on duty, whether they're off duty or not. Their demeanor, their actions or inactions are as a direct reflection of that fire department. So I want them to know that. I mean, it's very, very important to value those things and to know to get off on the right foot.
Yeah, I mean, but you're also demonstrating to them that their department is buying into them as much as you've asked them to buy into the department, right? It's like,
No question.
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just there's no question to that. I mean, and the current chief feels the same way. I mean, his responsibility is to borrow them for they work a 48/96 shift now, and to borrow them from their family for 48 hours to serve the citizens of the city, and to take care of them for that amount of time. So it's real. I mean, it's very, very important for them to know that. I mean, if they're just punching in and punching out, and there's no question that there would be a high turnover and such, like if they're not feeling appreciative.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's not just words; it's by actions of the people. And so you gotta like have, I don't know how else to say it, but you gotta lead by example and actually show through action and not just words.
I love that. It's very well said. I couldn't agree with you more. So, what's next for you? I mean, you have a new chapter now that you've been doing for about a year and a half with the state of Texas. It's quite an interesting position that you're in. Very different, I think, than what you were doing. But I think the jobs leading up to it certainly set you up for it and put you in a good place to work with the public and work with the state of Texas. What's next for you, man? I mean, is this one's going to be a good go for a while and so on? I'm curious because I think you bring so much to the table. And
Yes, sir.
yeah,
This is the goal. It
yeah,
came a little sooner than I thought. Opportunity comes at the weirdest timing. You never know.
for sure.
But their organization was growing. TDM was growing, and they were creating new positions. And that opportunity came knocking, and I really had to look myself in the eyes and kind of
Yeah.
see that ultimately where I wanted to be. And it was kind of the right position at the right time. And so it has been, yes, sir. I mean, no telling what emergency or disaster, natural disaster or man-made disaster could happen, but we're here to do that. And I mean, a much bigger footprint. If I didn't realize anything, I mean, I knew Texas was big, but I didn't realize maybe how big when you get behind the wheel and have to travel as far as we kind of do on major events.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really good. We really get to actually expand upon it. I mean, I get to talk to 43 county judges and get to know them and build that trust because I don't want to meet them in the middle of a disaster.
Yeah.
Our boss thrives on we got to know these people beforehand because when there is something that happens, they need to be just a phone call away. They need to know who to call, and that may be myself or one of our staff. And that if they're in need, they've exhausted all of their mutual aid, and they're needing more resources. They know who and how to contact and get those things that ball rolling. And then we work with the governor's office to make those requests happen as fast as we possibly can.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Chief, very honored to know you, to talk with you today, to get a little bit of your story. And like I said, man, I can't wait to cross paths with you again. I really enjoyed my time with you when we were out there, and I enjoyed my time today with you. And it's just exciting to watch you flourish. And I think, I'm excited to see as your position as the regional section chief for the Texas Division of Emergency Management. I'm excited to see where that goes. And, I wish you nothing but the most success with it, man. I think it's fantastic.
I appreciate it, Jeremy, and you're doing a phenomenal job. I listen to your podcast. I'm very honored to be here with the competition or the other
Come on.
other guys that you've interviewed. They do a phenomenal job. You do a bang up job of bringing out the good in people and spreading the word. That's the biggest thing is spreading those little nuggets and spreading the word out of how people can do better and better themselves and the fire service as a whole.
Hell yeah.
We we darn sure don't hear all the time of what all the good these guys, men and women, are doing out in the field, but we dang sure hear it when somebody messes up. So you have that opportunity to bring that out and the best of those people and let everybody learn from an outstanding deal. Even the tiller time, my hat's off to you. It's phenomenal. The new equipment that's being put out, and you going out and working with those people as well. Bang up job.
Well, I thank you. That's coming from you. I take that as a very large compliment, and I do appreciate that. I will say this. The importance of this podcast is literally to listen and hear everybody's story. Everybody has a story, whether they're teaching on a national stage and they're the most influential person in the fire service, down to a guy that may not have had an opportunity to share a story or an experience, but it's just as grand or important as anyone else. And I think everyone in this fire service has a story to share, and I want to capture them, because I think what propels and pushes this job forward are conversations like you and I had today for this last hour, because somebody will always get something out of the conversation. It might not hit thousands of people, but maybe 10 or 20 people that listen to an episode pick up something that either makes them laugh, changes their attitude, maybe changes their course in their career, right, on a big scale. But like whatever it is, like for me, it's a selfish endeavor. It allows me to talk to you again. But if we can capture our conversation and maybe, you know, change somebody else's day, or talk about how important tradition is to you, and the fact that New Braunfels, where you retired from originally, invites you back to still talk with their probies, and maybe somebody listening to this goes, man, that's a great idea. Maybe we should do that, right? Like that's the power of this podcast and the people that come on here. And so it doesn't have to be the biggest name in the fire service to tell a story and to make an influence or to have influence. And so, Darren, I can tell you flat out, this was a great conversation, and I'm sure somebody got something out of it today. And it's because you were willing to give back yourself today. So it's not just me, it's our guests, and it's the people willing to share their stories and their message, because it pushes this job forward. And that's what we're all obligated to do that. And, you know, I pale in comparison to you, what you've done there, and, you know, protecting tradition and pushing tradition forward with your people and the next generation, man. I mean, that is just as influential as it gets. And kudos to you, man. Thank you, Chief, for joining me today. Truly.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Good. Well, let me do this. I'm going to sign off the podcast, and I'm going to come right back to you. So don't hang up. Stay right with me, and then I'll be right back to you, okay? Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Great. Guys, thank you for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Darren Brinkkoeter. Did I say it right? Brinkkoeter? Brinkkoeter.
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 Yes,
I got it right. Bang. All right. Well, listen, I'm sorry I butchered it on the intro. I do apologize, but we don't edit, so you're going to have to deal with it, Chief. I apologize. But
that's all good.
I appreciate you so much. Guys, what a great story today. What a great story about tradition, preserving our tradition and history, and pushing our job forward, because frankly, we can't go anywhere if we don't know where we started. So preserve that history and culture in your firehouse and push it forward and make this job better. Take this conversation, take it back to the kitchen table tonight and talk about it, because when we talk about the job, we are making the job better. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio. National Fire Radio.